We're into the last half hour of the Monday edition of the Mid-Morning Talk with Najma Khota. And as I've said before, today we've skipped our wellness segment to accommodate Brisbane and New Zealand in our Ramadan all over the world theme for Ramadan. This is our last show for Ramadan. And then we resume, inshallah, after Eid with our normal programming. As I've said earlier, our very special guest joining us now is live from Brisbane. And it is Brother Yunus Mohammed. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah and welcome, Brother Yunus.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Shukran.
What time is it in Brisbane?
It's we 8 hours ahead, so it's 22:09. Exactly 8 hours ahead, yeah.
All right, so I must thank you for making time for us because I know you just rushed out of your Taraweeh Salah.
Yep.
To join us and allow us to experience a bit of Ramadan in Brisbane. What is it like? Describe what Ramadan is like in Brisbane.
Well, Ramadan is it's similar to South Africa in the sense that people go for Taraweeh and they have the massive iftars and Qiyamul Layl and all that. So it's very similar to Taraweeh in that sense. A lot of the mosques have massive iftars. For example, Al Jesta has a massive iftar every Saturday, and where they feed about 1,000 to 1,200 people. Are you still on?
Yes. Go ahead.
Oh, so they feed about 1,000 to 1,200 people, which is a really big iftar, and lots of mosques have massive iftars, but Al Jesta has it virtually every week. Some has once a month, some twice a month. There's good community spirit. People are away from home, so they'd like to mingle and socialize. So when we go to Al Jesta, which is predominantly it's a Sunni mosque where they do zikr and things like that, where people mainly from Southern Africa, Zimbabwe, South Africa, Malawi, and so on. So from that point of view, you get to meet a lot of people from there. And then after the Taraweeh, generally, every Saturday night, they have a fundraising where they have a barbecue. And that is quite fun because you're meeting a lot of friends, we're eating, we're overeating and things like that. So that is fairly good. And the thing that's different from South Africa also is that there's diverse communities, right? If you go to Al Jesta, for example, you've got Southern African people. You go to other mosques, you're predominantly Indonesian. You go to Slackstick Mosque, you got lots of Fijian there. You go to the Bosnian mosque, you have lots of Bosnians there. So from that point of view, it's a very diverse culture, and that makes it very interesting compared to South Africa.
Right. So I'm imagining that the food as well must be quite a display of flavors and variety. And is it inviting just the local community or the musallis at the mosque, or do you find that extended community also partake in those fundraisers?
Well, for example, when they have the fundraisers, they invite everyone. So it's basically the local community in the area. And they also invite people from other parts of Brisbane, if they want to come back. It's people socialize, it's fundraising, they're having fun. And I like Al Jesta in the sense that when you come out of the mosque, there's a covering area with tables. So you sit there and you catch up with people that you haven't for a long time, and that's a good part of it. You're reading your salah, you're doing your fard, and you're catching up and you're socializing. And there's, like you said, there's diverse cultures. So you eat at every different mosque, you'll have a different cultural feel when you visit those mosques.
So in terms of the the interest, and how does it because this develops quite a community spirit, and which is the essence of Ramadan, and more especially the mosque area. It sounds like there's a fantastic community spirit that is enhance during this time. So food and bringing people together, but at the same time fundraisers, which is very interesting because we are, out to give, so to speak, in Ramadan. Does that also become part of this whole, organization of people gathering at the time?
Well, the iftars is not a fundraising. They feed the mosque go to for iftar. I don't go to all the mosques because a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times you don't want to overeat. You just want to be at home with the family. The
Mm-hmm.
iftar I go to at Al Jesta, for example, there's different families providing it. So it's not fundraising for the iftar, and they feed in up to 1,200 people. A full meal.
Wow.
But the fundraising is after the Taraweeh, or after the at least further than 8 rakats of Taraweeh they start.
Mm.
That is sort of the fundraising, but it's more than the fundraising. It's more the socializing. So the fundraising is
Right.
incidental, in a sense that they do raise funds, which is good, but lots of the things are like donated. Like for example, the meat and all the things are donated. So whatever they make is completely funds for the mosque,
Right.
uh, and that's a good thing, from that point of
Mm.
view. So it's more the socializing and meeting people and all that, and the
Mm.
spirit of Ramadan is kept alive. You sit in
Mm.
there, you're hearing the Taraweeh, and after
Mm.
8 rakats, some people come out, some people are in, and like I said, the atmosphere is very good. There's
Mm.
separate section for ladies and men, or families can sit together. So it's very family orientated mosque.
Mm.
Lots of people will come with their children and all that, and it becomes a very, like I said, very family orientated mosque. You'll see a
Right.
father with his son and his grandchildren and his wife and the in-laws. They're all sitting together. So that's a good
Lovely.
sort of spirit, and there's lots of
Mm.
space for that also.
Right.
So that's a good time.
Wonderful. Yeah, so it's accommodated. With a growing Muslim population in Australia, is there growth? Are you witnessing a growth?
Well, definitely, in a sense that if you look at South Africa's population is about 60 million, and the Muslims about close to 1.6%, say a million, as an estimate. Whereas
Mm.
Australia, the population is about 25.6 million, and the population now is gone to about 3.2%. So it's much higher percentage wise in South Africa, and it's growing at a very fast pace because there's a lot of immigration happening all the time. So
Uh-huh.
you'll get people coming from Afghanistan, from Iraq, refugees coming, normal people coming from all over the world. So that has definitely had an increase in the population. Now, initially, when we look at Australia, when Australia started, they started similar to South Africa. The 1860 Afghan Cameliers came to Australia. But when they
Mm.
came to Australia, they weren't allowed to come with their families. So
Mm-hmm.
with the result, they came there, they married the local, but the locals were not Muslims. So with the result, Islam suffered. Islam, in a sense, weakened,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And then later, another thing that's a cause for Islam weakening was that there wasn't a madrasa system.
Right.
So in South Africa, similar time, uh, people from India came, and they came with their families. So Islam got stronger. So the South Africa has grew quite a bit Islamically, whereas Australia uh, later started growing. So even in 1901, people came. I know, for example, the Rain family came in about 1878, round about there, or 1838, and he came with his. He came alone because the males came alone. And on the ship, he met an English woman, and she converted to Islam, and he married her.
Mm-hmm.
And then he had two daughters, and from there he had his son, a grandson, which became the imam of a mosque in Australia for about 30 years. But there was a self-taught imam,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? So they sort of built Islam, and then you had Australia's 1901 uh, no no non-white policy. So people
Right.
from Asia, people from Malaysia, Indonesia, all those countries, if you have of color, you were not
Mm-hmm.
allowed in Australia at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why Islam didn't grow that much. But you give due to the Rain family, the Dean family, the Goss family, they kept Islam strong. They worked on it, although they weren't coming with their family. And then the
Mm-hmm.
Afghani Cameliers, you get lots of them putting up mosques, like the mosque Holland Park is probably about 120 years old. In
Okay,
1906,
interesting. Yeah.
in 1906, an Afghani bought the land and he donated it to them. And then the family there, the Rain family, the Dean family, they worked and put up a mosque, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so they worked hard on it. And then even if you look in Perth, there's another mosque there, which is probably, I would say, an Afghani put it up, probably about
Mm-hmm.
120 years old also. But then again, you find a lot of the people in the community, they got surnames like Muhammad and Khan and all that, but they're not practicing Muslim. So Islam
Right.
has been lost along the line there, but
Mm-hmm.
Alhamdulillah, it came back on track and it's growing very fast now. So
Mm. And
that's a
what
good
would you
thing.
attribute that to?
Well, I think the determination of the brothers to go forward. You look at Brother Rain, Haji, he was an imam there for 30 years. He used to travel quite far up into Cairns and all that, looking at visiting Muslims. And they were the pioneers in one aspect. There could be other pioneers also that I'm not aware of, but they could be. But they were the pioneers that worked on it. And then you find the immigration, a lot of people coming in from the subcontinent later, and that sort of started letting Islam grow. But it's a very diverse community.
Right, that's interesting because what one thinks about in terms of Ramadan, and there's this heightened spirituality, Alhamdulillah, and there's this community spirit and
Mhm.
giving, there's charity, there's food, there's the congregational prayers, the Taraweeh Salah, all of that, that heightens everything at the time. Does one find that it's difficult to then, I mean, this is a question for everyone, I suppose, not just people living in Brisbane, but in terms of being in a so-called Western country and the challenges that you face there, do you find that the spirit is upheld? I suppose not at the same level, but can it be upheld in that sense? Is it being upheld? Is it easy
Yes,
to
yes,
uphold? Yeah.
yes, most definitely it's been upheld
Mm-hmm.
because, from where I live, if you drive 7 minutes, you got the Bosnia Mosque, which is a lovely mosque to read at. You go in
Mm-hmm.
the other direction about 8 minutes, there's a Karabi Mosque. And the Karabi Mosque, now they're extending, it's too small. You go Maghrib, the whole mosque is full, so they had to extend it. And then you
Right.
go 10 minutes the other side, you get the Fijian Mosque, Slacks Creek.
Oh
And then you
my.
go
Yeah.
about 12 minutes, you go to Al Jesta, which is a massive mosque also. I mean, just the eating facility is 1,200. So from that
Right.
point of view, there's lots of programs happening all the time. I mean, some mosques have dhikr every Thursday, like Al Jesta. There's mosques further in Marsden that has dhikr programs. They have Maulud programs. So very similar to South Africa. They have
Mm-hmm.
their programs. There's some mosques that don't have it, some mosques that have it. So the diversity is coming there. And it is a challenge at times. It is a challenge at times. For example, the LGBT, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is a
Mm-hmm.
challenge in a sense that, you know, they say the LGBT, if they say something and if you give your opinion, you've been disrespectful, you've been homophobic. But the
Mm-hmm.
thing is that when they voice their opinion is fine, but the Muslims have a right to respect them. We should respect them. And at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, we have to voice what's the Islamic's point of view. So from
Right.
that point of view, those are the challenges we face. And I'm sure the ulama are looking into it further and looking at ways to respond. But inshallah, the Muslim is quite active here in charity work, in community work. So that is not a problem. They're working towards that.
Mm-hmm. After the break, we find out about Eid festivities in Brisbane.
There is great power in generosity. When times are hard, Allah tells us to give. When we are sick, give. And if we want more wealth, we should give. That's the power of generosity. Give generously in these last 10 nights. Donate now to Islamic Relief.
From samosas and half moons to cook sisters and roti, everything between iftar and seri makes sunfoil cooking oil an essential part of your Ramadan. Approved by the Heart and Stroke Foundation as part of a healthy diet, this blessed month, give your family the best with sunfoil, because tradition just tastes better.
Discover the Africa of your dreams and surround yourself with her spectacular beauty. Relax beneath her serene sunsets and explore wildlife at its natural best. It's where the pride of Africa comes together. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve. Get to know the Big Five or cruise on an elephant safari game drive. Interact with lion and tiger cubs and enjoy world-class halal cuisine while we pamper you during your 5-star stay. Indulge in the true African experience. For reservations, call now on 042-203-1400 or visit kwantu.co.za. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve, the place of gathering.
This Ramadan, spread the winds of generosity across the world with the Al Imdad Foundation. Sponsor a food hamper for just 800 Rand and help us deliver essential food aid supplies to struggling families across 40 countries globally. Let's feed the fasting this Ramadan. Donate online at alimdad.com or call 0861 786 243 for more information.
With so many investment options today, it's only natural that you might feel a little confused which route to take. Should I buy shares or should I invest in gold bullion? Randery Jewelers now brings you the Zahab coin, an alternative to the Kruger Rand. The Zahab coin, a solid wealth protector in its purest form of 24-karat gold, is the safest way to protect your wealth. So don't just sit there and watch your paper money depreciate. Change to gold. Call Randery Jewelers now at 031 202 4701 or visit www.rjcoin.co.za, situated at 151 Essenwood Road, Musgrave, Durban. Randery Jewelers, the family name you can trust.
In the aftermath of the tragic earthquakes in Syria and Turkey, thousands of survivors are struggling and in need of food, shelter, and life-saving aid. This Ramadan, take a closer look at the countless lives that have been turned upside down. You have the power to help. Your donation is the lifeline, a beacon of hope in an otherwise hopeless situation. Please donate today. Visit donate.unhcr.org/RamadanZA.
You are listening to Salam Media live from our headquarters in South Africa. This is Salam Media, keeping you company this Ramadan.
Remember, tomorrow is our last and final episode of Psychology of Ramadan, Rumi, his history and teachings, and the preservation of the Holy Quran. We hope that you will join us tomorrow as well on Najma Khota's mid-morning show on Salam Media. Right now, we're speaking to Yunus Mohammed, live out of Brisbane on Ramadan and Eid in Australia. There's also a comment here, good overview of Muslim history and culture in Brisbane and Australia in general. Jazakallah, Yunus, for sharing that information with us. Tell us about the Eid festivities in Brisbane.
Well, the Eid festivities, most of them are similar to what happens in South Africa. People get up, go for Eidgah or Eid Salah, and then after that they come back, visit the cemetery, come home, have their breakfast. And then lunch, you find that previously the community wasn't very big, so they should have a Eid function in a hall, right? For example, in Perth, they still have it. So every Eid function, they meet in a hall, and the families will just bring their food and they'll sit together. And it's a way of getting along and keeping in touch with people. Whereas Brisbane, the community has become very big. So with the result, now people are forming their own small groups. Some people go to restaurants, some people go to halls, some people are at home. So that's the Eid function. Then, in addition to that, you might have a function where the IC, Islamic Council of Queensland, will organize, or the United Muslim of Brisbane, they would organize in a venue where they'd have stalls there for food, have stalls for selling, have different rides there, have different events and that. And also they'll invite the local politicians there, they'll have a talk, and it'll be fun for the community. So that happens also, but not generally not on the same day of Eid, probably the weekend after, or maybe a few days later, which is more convenient. So there's definitely more. There's lots of celebrations for Eid. Yeah.
And in terms of the Eidgah, are women also part of the congregation?
Yes, the women are part. There's most of the mosques cater for women. So if you look at some of the pictures that I sent, the one in Lutchwich, the women were in the back, right, and the men were in the front, and that is right beside the mosque. There's a park there, so they have an Eidgah there, and that the women were there, and after that they were feeding everyone. So they were celebrating because it's a community and people know each other for the whole month and they celebrate. So likewise in other areas, other mosques, women are definitely there. If you look at ICB, which is at the Islamic, the school there, they have the mosque there, and after the mosque, they'll have a bit of snacks for eat for those who want to stay back and eat. So definitely the women do come at the Eidgah, and some people also read at the mosque. For example, Holland Park, the mosque here, and Karami Mosque will close their mosque and they'll come to ICB and have a mess Eidgah. So that will happen there. But some mosques do have the Eid Salah in the mosque.
We saw for the first time that Trafalgar Square was lit up with Eid Ramadan decorations. Is there anything of that sort in Australia or Brisbane, for that matter, for Eid or Ramadan?
Not that I'm aware of, unless just where they have the big function, where they invite people to come and have rides and food and clothing stores and speakers. They'll have fireworks, so they'll have massive fireworks.
Okay.
So that does happen in a big way. If you go there, you'll catch the fireworks, and it's fairly safe. It's very controlled, and it gives you a wow effect when you watch it, right? And it's highly subsidized by the different people that come there. So there's lots of fun from that point of view.
Right. Does this perk the interest of non-Muslims?
Yes. Well, if you look at Lakemba, right? Now, Lakemba is in Sydney where they have the food markets, right? I know my son Rashad and his wife Shabana went there last week, and they say the crowd is humongous. And they say during the month of Ramadan, you get about 1.2 million people on average. And that's like 40,000 people a day on average, and there's about 70 stalls there. So each stall, if people are spending $20, they spend like 360,000 per stall revenue. So there is lots of interest from the public, lots of interest from the Muslim. So lots of people go there and test the variety of foods. And I think you've seen the video of it, and there's lots and lots of different varieties and a good atmosphere. And obviously, you're not supposed to overeat in Ramadan, but that's left to the individual.
Sure.
He should control himself. But long as they're doing their fard and reading their salah and coming there, that's fine.
Right.
So that's a memory, and lots of non-Muslims come there and also enjoy the food, the diversity of food. So that is something that's growing bigger and bigger every year, to such an extent there's hardly any parking there. So people, if they take the train, they have a free shuttle bus bringing them to the venue, right?
Wow.
So they're encouraging that to go further. And
Right.
coming in Brisbane, we don't have that big thing. But obviously, the fun fair on Eid's Day, it's open to everyone. So people
Right.
can come if they want to and see how the Muslims are celebrating Eid.
Right. I was just reminded again by Hussein, who's listening to us or watching us live from Perth, who's reminded you actually that just to mention that you have a participation of Muslims in Australia in the political scene. There are two ministers who are Muslim. I'm going to comment on that very quickly. We've just come to the end of our time. So very quickly, Eunice, your
Yes,
comment on that?
yes. One is in Perth. She's a lady, the senator. She's come there in 2004, right? And she was doing a lot of community work. And then she realized that, instead of just doing community work, someone said, why don't you run for an office? And she ran for an office and she won a seat. Alhamdulillah, she's from Afghanistan. She came from a tough background. If you look at her background, her father traveled they left Afghanistan when Afghanistan had a new government, and they went to India into Pakistan as refugees. And then the father made himself over on the boat. I'm sure you hear people come across with the boat. And then he
Mm-hmm.
had to work as a taxi driver and working in the kitchen and all that. And eventually, a few years later, he brought his wife and his, I think, 2 or 3 children. And she was still small, and she got here. And they got here like around about 2003, 2004, and she's still young, probably 20, 25, 26 years old, and she's a senator already. So alhamdulillah, you
Mm-hmm.
get them due. And if people are determined, there's lots of opportunity for Muslim out there. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that a lot of Muslims should take that opportunity, not only to study, go into politics, but obviously you need people of the right caliber, right? Because
Yeah.
you can't just people go to politics for the sake of politics. I think they need to have the capability, and after the capability, they need to have very good ethics, because it's very simple to get caught into politics. So the
Mm.
ethics, the honesty, to me is more important. But
Mm.
also, you can't have an imam going into politics. He needs to have the capability. And that's
Mm.
what I appeal to people. They should start developing the community. The mosques should start, the imams should developing people to take that step, to go forward and engage in politics, because in
Mm-hmm.
that way you're engaging with the broader society, and that will be a good thing.
Impacting in a larger way. And in speaking of Ramadan and the spirit of Ramadan and the growth of Muslim population in Australia in general, I think you've said something very important in that keep up the spirit, but also we have to follow the sunnah of the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in terms of our example that we set. So I must congratulate the Australian Muslims who are in an environment that's not really easy to practice, but you are and you have. And again, let's just give due to all those people who brought Islam to Australia at the time. And on that note, Brother Yunus, we wish you and everyone tuned in a very happy Eid to your family. It is a few days in advance, but of course, at the same time, would like to wish you all the best for the last 10 days, inshallah. And may Allah accept all our du'as and forgiveness, inshallah. Jazakallah once again for your time.
Jazakallah, you're welcome, and thanks for giving us the opportunity to share our views in Australia and our Muslims' views in Australia. And all the best with your show, and inshallah we meet soon again.
Inshallah ta'ala, Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
All right, and that's it. That wraps up today's edition of the Mid Morning Talk with Najma Khota. Remember, I did say that we'll be back tomorrow at the same time between 11 and 1 when we bring in our very special Ramadan series features. The first one being Psychology of Ramadan, the second one, Rumi and his teachings, his history and teachings, and the preservation of the Holy Quran. I look forward to being with you. I really look forward to those conversations with my guests, who are, of course, Sayyid Jamaluddin Miri, and then we have Abu Bakr Karolia and Kari Bashir Patel, respectively. From me and the Salam Media team here, Shazia, my producer, and Abrar, my technical assistant, we wish you a good day and pleasant Ramadan going forward. Assalamu alaikum.